On a quiet Monday morning, David Carter sat on the porch of his sprawling ranch, sipping coffee as the sun painted the sky gold. His peace broke when a formal letter arrived, stamped with the HOA logo from the neighboring community. The message was bold. "Sell your ranch to us or face consequences." David chuckled. They had no idea who they were dealing with. For years he had quietly owned not just his ranch, but every plot of land their fancy neighborhood was built on. Their homes, their playground, even their beloved clubhouse, all stood on property he owned. And now they wanted him to sell. David folded the letter, a slow smile curved across his face. They thought they held power, but the game was just beginning, and David was ready to teach them a lesson they'd never forget. By Thursday evening, the HOA board gathered in their pristine clubhouse, completely unaware of the storm about to hit them. Karen, the self-appointed HOA president, slammed her manicured hand on the table. "We can't have that old ranch ruining our neighborhood's image," she declared. "We'll pressure him until he sells." The members nodded in agreement, already drafting fines and petty complaints. Meanwhile, David sat in his truck outside, listening through the open window. Every word fueled his quiet amusement. They saw his ranch as a problem, but he saw opportunity, a chance to finally remind them of the fine print they had all ignored. As the meeting wrapped up, David started his engine and smiled. "If they want to play hardball," he murmured, "I'll show them who owns the ball field." The next morning, the HOA sent their first warning letter. It accused David of violating neighborhood standards with his unsightly fencing and unapproved livestock. David laughed as he read the letter, standing next to his horses. "Unsightly, huh? Let's see what they say when the tables turn," he whispered. That afternoon, he visited the county records office and printed every deed proving his ownership of the neighborhood land. Each house, each sidewalk, even the HOA office. All leased from him for a token fee. And hidden in that contract was a clause they had clearly forgotten. The landowner reserves full rights to terminate leases with 30 days' notice. With the documents in hand, David walked back to his truck, a plan forming in his mind. If the HOA wanted a fight, they were about to learn just how small they really were. At the next HOA meeting, David arrived uninvited, his boots echoing on the polished clubhouse floor. The board members went silent, their smug expressions faltering as he placed a thick stack of documents on the table. "You've been sending me letters," David said calmly. "So I thought it's time I send." "You won." Karen crossed her arms. "You can't just—" "Oh, I can," David interrupted, his voice sharp but steady. "You see? Every inch of this neighborhood belongs to me. And according to these contracts, I can revoke your leases any time I like." Gasps filled the room. One man dropped his pen. Another looked pale. Karen tried to argue, but the weight of the truth sank in. For the first time, the HOA realized the man they'd been bullying could evict all of them with a single signature. David leaned in, his smile calm but cold. "So, do you still want my ranch?" The room was silent except for the hum of the ceiling fan. Karen's confident tone cracked as she stammered, We didn't know." David leaned back in his chair, arms folded. "No, you didn't. You were too busy writing fines to notice who held the deed to your dreams." By the next morning, word had spread like wildfire. Neighbors whispered as David drove through the community. Some waved apologetically, others avoided eye contact. The HOA board called an emergency session, begging to negotiate, but David wasn't rushing. Instead, he mailed every homeowner a letter, not a threat, but an opportunity. He offered fair lease extensions and even hinted at reducing certain fees. The message was clear. David wasn't their enemy, unless they chose to make him one. And just like that, the balance of power shifted. For the first time, the HOA found itself answering to the man they had underestimated. Within a week, the entire neighborhood changed its tune. The same people who once complained about David's ranch were now bringing him pies, shaking his hand, and thanking him for being so understanding. Karen, once the loudest critic, showed up at his ranch with a basket of homemade cookies. We'd like to start fresh," she said, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it. David smiled politely but kept his guard up. "Starting fresh is fine," he replied, "as long as everyone remembers the land they're standing on and who owns it." Behind closed doors, the HOA board dissolved most of its strict rules. No more petty fines, no more constant harassment. Slowly, the tension faded, replaced by a cautious respect for the man they once tried to bully. But David wasn't doing it for power. He simply wanted peace, and now, finally, he had it. Months passed, and the neighborhood grew quieter, friendlier even. Kids waved when David drove by, and families invited him to community barbecues. The ranch that once ruined the view had become the heart of the neighborhood. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills, David stood on his porch, looking out over the land. He didn't seek revenge. That was never the point. He just wanted respect. And now, he had it. Karen stopped by that night, holding a simple envelope. "We voted to rename the park," she said shyly. "Carter Park, in your honor." David chuckled softly. "I don't need a park named after me," he said, tipping his hat. "Just take care of this land. It takes care of all of us." And with that, the man they once underestimated became the quiet guardian of the neighborhood, a reminder that true power doesn't shout. It simply stands its ground.